administration when I recognized very early on that this was in fact a genocide, and the United States government was fully and unequivocally backing that genocide. I'm only coming out now because I had to wait until the expiration of my active duty service to be able to speak out, but I'm coming out now to say that I do not support what the U.S. government has been promoting in Gaza for the last 22 months. 250 years ago, at the dawn of this nation, George Washington gave us a warning. In his farewell address, he cautioned us against the insidious wiles of foreign influence and pleaded with future generations to preserve the independence of our political institutions from entangling alliances and passionate attachments abroad. He did not do this out of isolationism or fear, but out of the deep understanding that the strength of the Republic lies not in its might, but in its moral clarity. Not in who it can dominate, but in who it can resist. I speak to you today as someone who wore the uniform of this country for over a decade, who stood the watch aboard a nuclear submarine as an officer, entrusted with one of the most powerful arsenals on Earth. I swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I took the oath seriously, but I have come to understand that threats to our republic do not always arrive in the form of armies or missiles. Sometimes they arrive as ideologies, quiet, corrosive, and clothed in the language of friendship. And today, the greatest test of our national integrity is not in the South China Sea or the Persian Gulf. It is Gaza. What is unfolding in Gaza is not a conflict. It is not a war between equals. It is a calculated starvation, bombing, and displacement of a captive civilian population executed by the Israeli government and made possible by the full backing of the United States. Let us be honest, without the billions in military aid to end the uninterrupted flow of weapons, the diplomatic shielding at the United Nations, and the bipartisan silence in Congress, this would not be possible. Every party, Republican and Democrat alike, has put loyalty to a foreign government above the lives of Palestinian children, above the conscience of the American people, and above the very values we claim to stand for. I know what these values are supposed to mean. I believed in them enough to lead sailors into harm's way. But how can we speak of liberty when we fund occupation? How can we claim to uphold human rights while enabling war crimes? How can we call ourselves a democracy while criminalizing dissent and silencing anyone who questions our blind allegiance to Israel? This is not just foreign policy. This is the capture of our republic. Washington foresaw this. He warned that passionate attachment to another nation would lead to the illusion of common interest, the betrayal of our own. And that is exactly where we are. We have been seduced by a false narrative, one that equates strategic alliance with moral obligation and dissent with disloyalty. But let me be clear. To speak the truth about Gaza is not anti-American. It is profoundly American, because patriotism, real patriotism, is not obedience to power, it is fidelity to principle. And principle demands we say this: no nation, however sacred its origin story, has the right to ethnically cleanse, starve, or massacre civilians. Not even Israel. Especially not with our weapons, especially not with our tax dollars, especially not in our name. I resigned my commission because I could no longer serve a system that rewards cowardice and punishes conscience. I could no longer remain silent while my government abets apartheid and genocide under the guise of security. And I say to you now, our silence is complicity. And complicity is not neutrality. It is betrayal. Betrayal of our Constitution, betrayal of our humanity, betrayal of the republic Washington fought to build. But it is not too late. The people of this country have always been capable of great moral courage. It was ordinary Americans who ended the Vietnam War, who brought down Jim Crow, who forced the end of South African apartheid. And it'll be us, veterans, teachers, doctors, students, clergy, who end this era of bipartisan complicity and demand a foreign policy rooted not in blind loyalty, but in justice. Because the world is watching, Gaza is watching, humanity is watching. And one day our children will ask what we did when our government became the chief enabler of one of the great moral atrocities of our time. Let us have an answer worthy of them. As Washington said, the preservation of the sacred fire of liberty is finally staked on the experiment entrusted to the hands of the American people. It is time we take that trust back. Thank you.
My name is Caleb Dixs. I'm a proud American and a 5-year veteran of the United States Marine Corps. I stand before you today, not as a politician, not as a diplomat, but as a man who has seen firsthand the power and devastation of modern weaponry. I know what these tools of war can do. I know how precise they can be and how deadly they become when they're used with no restraint and no conscience. And what we are witnessing in Gaza is not war, it's a systematic annihilation. Let me be absolutely clear. The state of Israel is conducting not a just war. It is waging a campaign of brutality and cowardly, vengeful war against civilians. We've seen the targeting of journalists, doctors, paramedics, aid workers. Tens of thousands of children have been killed, entire families erased, hospitals flattened, and now even starvation used as a weapon. This is not self-defense. This is genocide. And while Israel may be pulling the trigger, America is loading the gun. With every bomb we fund, every weapon we ship, every veto we cast at the UN, we stain our hands with the blood of the innocent. But I'm not just speaking as a Marine or an American. I'm speaking as someone who has walked the streets of Palestine. I've looked into the eyes of the Palestinian people. I've sat with their families, shared meals, laughed with their children, heard their stories. And I can tell you with certainty, these are some of the kindest, most resilient, most dignified people I have ever met. They do not need our pity, they need our solidarity. I do not stand here as a savior, I stand here as a brother, standing shoulder to shoulder with the Palestinian people in their fight for freedom, dignity, and liberation. To the American people, you have more power than you think. It is your tax dollars, your silence, your votes that make this violence possible. But it can also be your courage, your voices, your resilience that brings it to an end. Do not let the language of defense fool you. Do not let the words of propaganda blind you. Human life is human life. And the Palestinian lives are not dispensable. If you believe in liberty, if you believe in justice, if you believe in the values this nation claims to uphold, then now is the time to speak, to stand, and to act. Gaza is burning, the West Bank is bleeding, and history is watching. May we choose to be remembered not for our silence, but for our moral clarity, and our refusal to be complicit in the face of evil. Thank you. Free Palestine, and God bless you all.
Hello everyone. Assalamu alaikum.